And good morning, everybody. We are live. Congratulations, it's Friday. You made it through the week. You get to kick up this weekend, drink a adult beverage of choice, and have fun. So if you're joining us this morning, happy you're here. And we're really excited to share what we're talking about today and the fact that you're investing an hour of your time to sit down with us and talk about food safety. So thank you for joining us and helping to improve knowledge in this critical area for all kinds of aspects. Food safety impacts everyone. And we're really glad that you're here. And if you're new to this, this is the Food Safety Chat. My name is Bryan Armentrout with the Food Leadership Group. And every week I bring an awesome guest on like Cori. We'll be introducing Cori here in a moment to talk about a food safety topic. And what you'll notice with our conversation here today is this is not a presentation. This is not us lecturing to you. This is us sharing our knowledge and information and answering your questions. And what you'll find is we're building a really super awesome community of people here who are working for food safety and building those bridges, because food safety is not a point of competition. It absolutely is not, because we're all in this together. As manufacturers, regulators, consumers, it impacts everyone because we all eat. So one of the things that we love to do here on the chat is say hello and let us know where in the world you're at. I'm always amazed by this. I'm in Loveland, Colorado, where it's a beautiful day. There's some very cold weather coming our way Monday. And as I mentioned earlier, my esteemed guest is Cori Muse with Muse, foodsafetymuse.com. I love that website. That's a great name. How are you doing today, Cori?
I'm good. I'm in Texas, in South Texas, but it's actually cold today.
Really? Oh, well, that's always a relative thing. What's cold in South Texas?
It was 50 this morning, but I imagine tomorrow it'll be 85 degrees.
Get out the parka. Yeah. So, Robert's down in he's in Plano. So always good to see Robert, um, awesome guy. And Robert, you and I need to talk here at some point. I would love to have you on the chat. Cheryl's here. Cheryl joins us almost every other week, and we're very glad to have her here. Lisa's here in beautiful Kentucky. Kentucky's such a cool state. I love Kentucky. So one of the things on the chat, if you're new to this, I always want to jump into the topic immediately, but we're not going to do that, because first, everybody, please join Cori and I in a morning toast to everyone. Thank you for being here. Cheers. Homero's in Syracuse. He misses Texas. Yeah, I used to live in Buffalo, so I feel your pain. Oh, you guys have got absolutely hit. You just killed this year with snow. Minnesota, -20 Monday. Yep. So what we're getting, Darren, must be coming your way. So I think, yeah, here it's going to be 5 below. And so I think it's barely going to reach 0 coming here earlier in the week. So it's coming. Pittsburgh, beautiful city as well. Doug's in Indiana. Nice. Good crew this morning. So, a lot. This is something that is a topic. It's kind of one of those things, Cori, that no, this is something we don't want to talk about, right? And we see evidence of this all the time, right? But it's a sensitive topic that we need to really discuss, and that's whistleblowing, right? And first of all, I mean, let's kind of set the stage here as well, Cori. What is whistleblowing? What does that mean to you?
So, classically, whistleblowing would be when you find something that the company's doing that's illegal, that's going to harm the consumer, and in the context of the food industry, something that's going to harm or maybe even, kill the consumer. And there's different kinds of whistleblowing. Obviously, there's ones that are legitimate. There's ones that maybe are disgruntled employees. There's also whistleblowers that see things that they don't understand necessarily, and maybe they see something, or management makes a decision that management's qualified to make, but they don't explain it to the lower level employees. And then those employees think, hey, wait a second, the last time we got, these micro results back, we destroyed the product. So, there's different scenarios that can play out. And that's, if you work at Jack in the Box, if you work at, a full scale manufacturer, you work at a farm, pretty much any entity that's making, holding, the whole little spiel from FSMA. If you're engaging in those activities, you're covered under FSMA, and you can be protected through OSHA when you make a complaint. But
Yeah, that's
we
interesting.
need to get into the different kinds of complaints, because there's consumers making complaints, there's employees that actually work at these places. There could be, FedEx drivers that are maybe transporting, e-com material, and they're noticing things. The whistleblowing can kind of come from any step in the process.
Yeah, and I think, if you are at a company and you're seeing something, it's your responsibility, right? It's your moral responsibility to report these things. And I think a great example of that, of course, is Peanut Corporation of America, selling adulterated product with salmonella in the peanut butter. The quality manager knew, and she went along, right? The boss told her, ship it, and she did. And she went to jail as a result.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the question you have to ask yourself. I've actually been a whistleblower twice in my career, and both times I said, I'm not going to jail for X. You know what I mean? Like, this is not worth my freedom. And a lot of times in these companies, leadership kind of throws the food safety person under the bus.
Yeah, that's something working in quality, Cori, that was something that always used to drive me nuts. Just in general, right? If you have a quality issue and products on hold, and then people would say, "Oh, well, we have a quality problem." And I'm like, "Well, hold on a minute here. I didn't make it. I'm just upholding the standard. You have a defective product that operations made. I didn't make the product, right? I'm just upholding the standards for the company." And in a lot of ways, and this is something I always used to teach my quality managers, Cori, is that you are the conscience of the organization. You're part of that group that the organization looks to decide what's right, wrong, what's good, bad, what's pass, fail. And when it comes to food safety, that's the highest bar that you need to maintain. And I would tell them that there's two main buckets of information that you need to look at in this role. The first is food quality. You're gathering data through the processes and the systems to make a business decision. Let's say, for example, there's a packaging, the date code's a little smudged or something like that. And the organization needs to decide how to disposition that product. Do we recode it? Do we throw it away? What do we do? There's a process that is gone through to make the right decision based upon the details. Food safety is different. Food safety is yes or no, right? If there's a food safety issue and we can't check it, that's it, right? And if the organization doesn't understand that, it's your job to teach the organization, make sure that they understand that. And if they don't, you may need to take steps beyond that, because as we say in this chat all the time, food safety goes beyond your company. We work in a unique field in that our loyalty goes beyond the company. Our loyalty is to the consumer. And I would tell my workers in the plants when I would meet with them, it's like, if you ever see anything on a line that makes you doubt it's a food safety, and the acid test is, can you take this home to your grandchildren and feed it to your grandchildren without batting an eye? If you cannot do that, I want to know immediately. And we all need to uphold that standard.
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes the companies look at us like the enemy, when really we're kind of the first line of defense. You would rather the internal FSQA department catch it than the feds come in, or your consumer eat it, and God forbid they die. And now that's how you're receiving the information. So it does tie into food safety culture, where you need the whole company having this attitude that we have, which is food safety is everyone's business. There's no one that is exempt from reporting something. And if you see something, tell your manager, and maybe you saw something and they can explain, oh no, we're putting that on hold, we're going to destroy it. Maybe there's some kind of miscommunication. But the worst thing you can do is the bystander effect, where you say, somebody else will do it, somebody else will do it, and then each person says that, and the next thing you know, you've got a snowball of issues. Because in my opinion, even as an auditor, I think complaints are good things. Getting consumer complaints, getting customer complaints, those are good things, because you can correct those things. You have data, you have something to work with. And I would rather have a warning than have a personal injury attorney show up at my door and say, I've got a class action lawsuit because your yogurt killed a bunch of kids, or, whatever the story might be.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like Bill Marler says, right? Put me out of business. I don't want to sue you, right?
Yeah.
You are creating the situation. Put me out of business. Absolutely, 100%. Now, part of this too, right, is that we have to realize that what we're talking about today with this whistleblower activities and what we're going to show here later on as well, this is the nuclear option, right? You're hitting the button, and once you do that, there's no going back. So you need to make sure and follow the process. And like we're talking about here, if you see something, talk, let your boss know, talk with your boss's boss, make sure it goes up to the organization. And if there's no response and nothing happens, then this is kind of what we're talking about. And this has to be a very egregious, serious situation. And it's funny too, Cori, how you kind of see with the advent, of our nice phones and all these things. We have cameras everywhere now, and we see these videos online of kids working in fast food restaurants taking videos behind the scenes at the restaurant saying, oh my God, look how dirty everything is, right? And we're all like, ew, gee, many Christmas. These are everywhere. Now, that kid working in that restaurant, did they talk with the owner? Well, they should have, right? But did they just post that video for shock value? That happens too, right? They're doing it to get clicks.
Yeah. And Austin's comment, unfortunately, the culture of many companies does not support speaking up. That's one of the biggest problems, is that if you're in a position of management or leadership and you have some leverage or pull in the company, leadership respects your opinion, it's easier for me to go to the owner and say, hey, this is wrong, versus an hourly employee that sees other people making reports, and then shortly after these people make reports, they disappear.
Yeah.
And they start to notice that, and they say, you know what, I'm not even going to say anything. I know I've worked in many facilities where the hourly employees are coming to me saying, this is going on, and I say, can we go to HR? And they say no. I mean, they just absolutely refuse because they're terrified of losing their job. And that's a real legitimate fear. And unfortunately, that's usually what happens. If you speak up and you don't protect yourself, you could be retaliated against.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. You need to protect yourself, because as outsiders, we kind of sit back sometimes too and say, how does it get to this? How did this happen? Abbott Labs, right? That was the result of a whistleblower who did that. FDA was in that facility all the time, all kinds of reports, and it still got to that point. The big one for me was last year. I'm not going to pull this up. I was going to, but I'm not going to because it's so nasty. Is Family Dollar. There was a warehouse in Arkansas that supplied Family Dollar warehouses, and absolutely infested with rats everywhere, rats everywhere. And the only reason we found out about that was because an employee took video and posted it, and it went viral, and he blew the whistle, and he lost his job for that.
They usually do. I mean, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
My advice would be that if you see something and you truly believe that it's egregious, you need to start collecting evidence, and don't collect evidence on your work computer. Take your phone, do whatever you have to do, but you have to have evidence. And then the second thing is get an attorney, get an employer attorney, and have them file the complaint with OSHA, because most complaints that you file on your own, OSHA's shorthanded. They can barely make the inspections for health and safety. When they get FSMA complaints, they don't necessarily go out to the site to see. And if they give the company a heads up, the company may clean things up. And by the time they get there, there's nothing to see here. So it's very difficult to catch these guys in the act. And just like we see with the FDA and Abbott, the FDA can show up, and, the hyperbole example I give is you could be taking a shit on the product, and the feds would just be like, I didn't see that from the beginning, so I'm not going to put this in the report. I mean, sometimes it blows my mind the things that they see that they don't call out versus some of the things like we talked about earlier with that 483 you're going, what? Like, how is that a real observation? So having that attorney being able to formally file everything the way that it needs to be filed and following up with OSHA, following up with the DOJ if that's something, if it goes that far. But I also realized that not everyone has that, has that option. There's some attorneys that will work pro bono if they really believe, like, let's say the Family Dollar guy had found an attorney and showed him those pictures. I bet that guy would have been like, oh, Family Dollar, I'll take your case with a 30% contingency fee because I know I'm going to win. But the guy that did that probably didn't know I need to get an attorney before I blow the whistle.
Oh yeah, that's if I was in a facility that you're not even thinking about that, right? You're just thinking about, oh, I need to report this and do the right thing. And when we were prepping for this conversation, this is an area I don't know a whole lot about. And OSHA, I was very surprised when you told me that this goes through OSHA.
It does, yes. So I will, because I'm not sure how I drop things in the comments from here, I will drop a link for the PDF form. It's an OSHA fact sheet, and it tells you all your protections under FSMA and how to file a complaint with OSHA. That's the way you can do by yourself. But like I said, if you have that option, I would definitely get an attorney and have them guide you through that process, because once you file that complaint, you're going to get fired. If you haven't already resigned and said, hey, I've had enough of this, you're going to get fired.
Yeah. You have to protect yourself in a situation like that, because this is really serious if it gets to this point. Chris here had a very interesting comment. This is cool. So he said, we're hoping to undertake a project to institute a whistleblower hotline so employees of manufacturers of our private label brands can anonymously reach out and allow the customer to follow up with the manufacturer. Wow. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's people out there that realize these things, and we see kind of these organic things that are growing out of this. We mentioned earlier, people taking videos of their working conditions at restaurants and things like this. We have websites like iwaspoisoned.com where people are reporting food safety illnesses. And hey, I ate these Lucky Charms, right? That was that big one that went viral, of which they didn't really find anything, which was interesting. You have these different sites out there that are doing those. In addition, as a consumer, you can go directly to FDA's website as well and report that too. And I pulled up the form just so everybody can kind of see it. So you can go here, and physicians can go in, and that's part of the requirement now too, right? Is physicians go in if there's a case of salmonella or things like that, they report these. And as a consumer, you can go in here and fill out a form.
And it's important, if you can, to go to the doctor and get stool samples so that they can give the medical records and say this person really did have food poisoning. Because I know in many cases, even myself, I had food poisoning on Monday and I didn't go to the doctor. I just stayed home and dealt with it. But I had some chicken in the fridge and I didn't put a label on it. And it was like, I think this is still good. And it wasn't. I had to deal with it.
Most people think that the sniff test works. Right? It's like, it smells fine. Not in some cases, like spoiled milk, sure, but chickens, no.
Yeah,
not going to work. And that's a good point too, Cori, is that when this happens, most people who get food poisoning don't report it, right? You just tough it out and you go, what's the doctor going to do anyway? Oh, you got food poisoning. Go lay in bed for a day and stay close to the bathroom or whatever. And you get through it. And there's that linkage process of what FDA is doing with the genetic genome and these type of things and tracking things back is a lot of ways how law enforcement works. Is the police show up to put the chalk outline around your body after the fact. They're not preventing it. So you need to think about that as well too. Part of what we're talking about today is, as we've mentioned, and Austin rightly brings up, is this is part of food safety culture, and getting in there and saying, this is not right. We need to fix this. It's not tolerable. And there's a phrase that absolutely, it's like chalk on a nail, it's like chalk, nails on the chalkboard thing. You walk to a company and you're asking these type of questions as an auditor or a consultant or things like this, and somebody says you're digging into things, and they say something along this line, Cori, of, yeah, we've always done it this way, right? Or we've never had a problem before. Yeah, we're fine. We've never had a problem before. It's like, oh, okay, you're going to have one. It may not be tomorrow.
I've seen companies design their complaint process to always blame the consumer. So in those cases, how would that company really know if they have an issue? And I would argue you should always design your programs to catch issues, whether it's your environmental monitoring or it's your customer complaint. You want to catch those issues before the feds or before you injure or kill a consumer, because you're going to have much bigger problems if you have a wrongful death suit on your hands.
Yes. And so part of the test I use internally, and I teach my quality managers as well, is the courtroom test, right? You are sitting on the stand and you're being questioned. It's like, okay, well, you were aware of this issue. Yes, I was aware of this issue. Well, what did you do about it? Well, I let my boss know. And, well, that was it. That's not going to hold up. It's not going to hold up. Right? We're dealing, and that's again what's unique about what we do in food safety. We're dealing with morality, right? We're dealing with people's lives, and we're dealing with what's right and wrong, and we need to always keep that in mind. Chris here had a follow-up point. We had a whistleblower complaint posted on Reddit from a former employee at one of our manufacturers that called us out as a customer of that manufacturer and prompted us to do an on-site audit. Hoping our new hotline for this will prevent some of this in the future. We all hear about these situations too. You had mentioned, Cori, going in an audit and things like this. Sometimes quality managers, if they get desperate enough, will pull the auditor aside and be like, Cori, you should really kind of go behind this door over here that we closed and take a look at what's going on behind there. It's kind of a backhanded recognition, that what's going on is not right, and it's eating away at them.
Yeah, I've had people beg me, just beg me to put things in a report because they say I've been trying, I've told management, they're not listening. Maybe if you say something, maybe something will be done. And that points to food safety culture, and it's disappointing as well, not every company is altruistic, and people need jobs, they have to work, and not every person has the ability to just say, you know what, I'm going somewhere else. So, what would you say to somebody that's maybe a production worker on the line, and they're not in the food safety department, but they see something every day and they go, you know what, this is wrong. I went to my supervisor and they told me, go away. This is how, kind of like you said, this is how we've always done it. Nothing's happened. We've never had a complaint, and I'm not stopping the line. What advice would you give an employee at that level?
It's tough, isn't it? Because a lot of times, food plants are in little rural towns in the middle of nowhere. You have 4 kids. Everybody knows everybody, and you're stuck. Right? What are you going to do? But again, right, there's a higher calling associated with this, and that becomes a tough call that you need to figure out. Can you have that on your conscience? And if you're laying in bed at night worrying about these things, you need to do the right thing. It may not be easy, and a lot of times the right thing never is. But simply taking it to your supervisor, and the supervisor says, "Hey, you're a troublemaker, huh? Just shut up." That's a big warning sign, right? You need to act. And there's multiple vectors and different ways you can do these things. So we talked a little bit about FDA and putting in complaints. There's all these sites out there now. Chris had mentioned Reddit and iwaspoisoned.com and things like this. Also, your local food health authorities. They know if you're in one of these rural areas, Cori, they know your plant well, or they should. So, maybe that's a potential vector that you could use if you're this person.
Yeah, I think the local health department will get you more results than the FDA, because they will come out usually immediately and inspect. And if you have pictures, like for example, there's a Starbucks nearby that I got food poisoning from, and Omero and I went inside and I started looking around and I said, you know what? I don't think this place has been cleaned in a month. And as soon as I said that, I looked up at the ceiling and there were hundreds of flies. And you could see them coming out of the bathroom. They were landing on the whipped cream where they put the, spray it in your drink. And it was just like evident. This is why I got sick. And we called the health department. So they go out, they immediately respond, put pressure on a retail establishment, but they can also go to a manufacturing location and do inspections. And I would say they're going to respond quicker. And even if they don't have authority to force a recall or force you to change programs, they might just make your owner or your board shaking their boots just enough that they say, you know what, maybe we should be a little more careful, because if these people come back, they could catch us doing something. Because usually those companies that are doing this, it's systematic. It's not a one-off thing. This is part of their culture. Their culture is deceptive business practices.
Yep, absolutely. Reminds me of that old saying, Cori, all politics is local. It's the same with food safety, right? Odds are that inspector that you went to on that particular issue, they get their coffee there too. And if that's the case, they're going to act, because now it's personal.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So as we were prepping for this, you let me know about something that I had never heard about, and that's the Global Harmonization Institute. What is that?
So this is a nonprofit group of individuals, scientists, scientific organizations, a lot of academics, and it's an international group. There's more of these people in other countries than there are in the United States. After this, I'll also drop a link to their website, as well as the page where you can report food safety incidents. And I have posted about this before on my LinkedIn. So if you go to my page under my featured section, there's a post called Whistleblower Wednesday. And if you click on that link, it takes you to the food safety incident report site. And basically, they're going to ask you a number of questions, and you can be anywhere in the world. I believe they've got it in 27 languages now. And you fill out this form, and the things to know that are important is this has been designed in a way that our organization works with a third party to collect this information. Part of the contract with this third party organization is that they never disclose IP address, name, any kind of unique identifying information. So once you fill out this report and it gets sent, let's say I'm the person reviewing it, I won't know who you are, and there's absolutely no way that I could know. Even if I wanted to know and I called the third party, they'd say, nope, not telling you. You go to the form, it asks a lot of, food safety related questions. It's important to know you kind of only have one shot, because you're not giving unique information about yourself. We can't follow up with you. So I'd say any evidence you have, any pertinent information, put it in there. And then what happens is, depending on what region in the world this is, we have a network of experts. And so I'm one of the experts for the US. And we get a report, We have 48 hours to analyze it, decide, is this a real report, or could this maybe be a disgruntled employee? And we really look at the facts to decide that. And then the next question is this something that's egregious, that's going to cause immediate harm? Or is this maybe something that's more quality related? We determine as a group, it's not just one person, should we report this to the authorities? If the answer is yes, who do we report it to? Mm-hmm. So, you know, I've been volunteering with this group for, I think, about a year now. And sometimes I'll go a month with no complaints. Sometimes I'll get a few complaints in a week. Obviously, I can't disclose any of these complaints, but I can say it's terrifying because I don't have the name of the company, but I'm very active in the food industry for 15 years. So it doesn't take many context clues for me to go, oh, I know exactly who that is. I know what town they're in. I know what they're making. I know who that is. And I do notice a pattern that after we report these, I start noticing recalls coming out of those facilities. So it gives me a little bit of encouragement to think maybe it gave them a little kick in the butt to say, we need to be more careful. We need to, you know, someone has their eye on us. And like I said, we should be more careful. And if you're doing it this way, you're an employee, there's no way that they're going to know you did it. So I would say when the health department or the feds come in, act natural and say, wow, I wonder how they knew. I mean, you know what I mean? Like you wouldn't want to tell everybody, hey, I'm the one that did this, because you're probably going to get fired. But,
hey guys, you got my report. Hi, come on in. Yeah. That's not going to go over well. Well, you made the comment earlier too that, yeah, don't use company equipment, and always remember that is company equipment, and they have a right to look at everything on that computer. And when you read through your employment contracts, they can do that.
Even incognito mode. I know that people say, oh, they can't trace this. They can. It's not as easy. They have to get into your IP through the router, but they absolutely can look at every single site that you're looking at. They can look at your keystrokes. That property belongs to the company, not you. So like I said, if you're collecting evidence, I would be very careful about how you go about doing that, because if you're working for a company and they really are doing some nefarious things, they're going to be watching. And if they see signs and they say, why is this person downloading, all these programs, or why are they downloading these receiving logs? They might get suspicious and they might let you go. So I would strongly encourage you to just be very careful, unless you're like me and you don't care, because I believe we have a duty. We have a duty as professionals, especially as competent, informed professionals. If we see something that's wrong, we have an obligation to report it, because you may not know the person that dies, but one of these days it could be your child, it could be a family member, it could happen to anybody. It's important.
Absolutely. And Austin said a question here. So it's possible to be a whistleblower and still remain anonymous. And I think, and so the answer, Austin, yes, but you have to be careful, right? So I think this goes back to your point, Cori, of you need help with this. You need a lawyer or someone who is savvy and can help you navigate the legal side of things. But what we're talking about as well is the technical side. And, some people are technically savvy, some aren't. And if you're not, right, you're going to need some help. So I did pull up here so people can see it, is the actual form. And this is on the Global Harmonization Institute. I keep calling it an institute, initiative, the Global Harmonization Initiative. And it is a Z. Okay, I put an S in there. So everybody, if you're searching that, don't use the European spelling, use a English American spelling. So there's FAQs in here. And so as you can see on this form, what type of concern, microchemical, physical, do you expect consumers to become ill? Has this happened before? Is it a repeat? And they have boxes in here to fill in information. What type of product, brands, packaging, preservatives, how is it treated for food safety risks? All kinds of details on the product. How is it stored? So we were going through this form earlier this week and kind of going, it's very, as everybody can see here, right? Very thorough, lots going on. And where is it happening? And additional comments. You'll notice on here as well that there is no ability to currently share pictures. It's all, written out information.
I may tell them we need to add some pictures in there because I think that would be helpful.
Now that gets in kind of the technical side of things as well too, because with pictures now they have metadata for pictures. So behind the scenes of pictures, there are details in there that someone might be able to use to figure out where it was taken or who took it even. So again, you need outside help, legal and tech savvy people who can make sure that you remain anonymous in this particular issue. You don't want to be, showing everybody that it's you. The correct English. Absolutely, Bryan. American English. Hey. So I go in, Cori, I'm a whistleblower. I've gone through everything. Nothing is happening. Final, I'm like, okay, I've got to do this. I find a lawyer. I make sure and be super careful. And I fill out this form. So this form then goes back to a central location that then sends it to the appropriate people like you for evaluation. Is that how that works?
Yes, and for GHI, that's how that would work. And because it's anonymous, we won't have follow-up. We won't even follow up with the authorities. We kind of just are the liaison taking the information anonymously and giving it to the authorities. So, it's not necessarily going to fix the issue, but it's going to bring awareness. And the more complaints that are made and the more eyes that go into a facility, the better chance you have of making some change, or at least making the owners nervous enough to say, we're going to have to make some changes. And I think it's important to tell people that, whistleblowing is not like you see in movies. You don't go, yeah, I'm going to go tell and they're going to shut the company down and it's going to be great. And I'm going to be the hero. You are going to be the pariah, the enemy. Your friends at work are going to turn against you. The company's going to turn against you. They're going to likely fire you. They're going to say all kinds of horrible things about you, about what a terrible employee you were. And you're just mad because this or that. And so it's not something that's easy, and you're not going to be looked at like a hero, and it's going to be really difficult. I mean, we see the 34-page whistleblower report out of Abbott. That was not well received. It took years for the FDA to really take action, and that wasn't until children got sick.
Mm-hmm.
There's a famous whistleblower with Nestle. And I'll, after this live thing, I'll put links to all of these things I'm talking about so you can go read about it. But it was a huge struggle for Dr. Yasmin, I'm gonna say her name wrong, Motar Jimmy. Apologies, I cannot say it. But yeah, I mean, you're not gonna crusade in and shut the place down. There's so many egregious things that we see, and we go, why is the FDA letting this go on? So I think we're years away from where we should be with the FDA. At least, the FDA preventing instead of reacting, and the FDA really responding to food safety failures appropriately. But like we said in the beginning, it's political. It's political at a local level. It's political at, a federal level. We need food. Businesses need to make money, and it would be very bad for the country if, we shut down a major, Tyson facility, and I'm not calling Tyson out. I don't have any ill feelings towards Tyson. I'm just naming one that's very large.
Yeah.
It supplies a lot of food. So it's important to remember that. But this all plays into food safety culture because, everybody in the company should care about food safety, and everybody in the company should not want to have a failure that hurts or kills a consumer. Like, dead consumers don't bring in revenue.
Yeah. Doing the right thing is often not the easy thing.
No, not at all.
Yeah. And so I can only imagine if I was in a situation like this, and I'm very lucky I never have been, imagine knowing something like this and seeing this and knowing that you're putting people's lives at risk with these processes. And now fast forward and you're 85 years old on your deathbed and you're thinking about this and you've been carrying this burden your entire life. Don't do that. And you need to, there's a lot of soul searching, I think, too, that goes on with this when you see something like this and exhausting the different resources. And that's why I think this food safety chat today was so important, is this is something we don't talk about. And if something was to happen, people don't even know what to do. I had no idea that this organization, the Global Harmonization Initiative, existed until you told me. Now imagine, you're an employee on the line, your chances of knowing about it are essentially zero. So you're struggling with these things. And so part of this is figuring all this out and making sure that information is out there so people can understand, because posting a video online, going on YouTube or things like that, probably not going to get anything done. There needs to be some teeth behind it.
For sure. And with my weekly recall report, in the comments, I have links to how to report food safety incidents with the FDA and the USDA. So if anybody ever needed a quick way to get to the link, that's available on all of my recall summary reports.
Yeah, and we see this too. This is a bit of a segue, but emerging industries. So something that you're highly involved in is e-commerce, and there's been revelations relative to new threats in that industry for food safety, because food is being transported through channels that weren't designed for the transportation of food. I can only imagine what's being seen on those side of things.
Yeah, some pretty egregious stuff. And FedEx drivers, I've talked to FedEx drivers that tell me this doesn't seem right. We get these boxes and they're leaking blood onto the floor of our truck, and you have to know that it's not being held frozen if it's bleeding on the floor. It's just
right.
I'm still just in shock that any company would think it's a good idea to ship perishable food for mail.
Yeah, and this is how we do it, and we've done it this way now in this business for 5 years, and so it's fine.
Yeah, and we're all supply chain and finance people, so we know all about validation studies.
Yeah, and so one of the things, what's interesting about food safety and what we do is, one of the things I would say, and I've said this, before on this chat as well, is what we do. We don't do this because it's easy. There's a lot easier ways to make money. We do this because we care, and we want to make sure that people are safe. And we want to make sure that people are comfortable and trust the food that we eat, including me. I want to be able to be confident in the food that I eat. And when we go to foreign countries, a lot of times, depending on where we go in the world, that level of trust goes away instantly. We need to maintain that here. And every industry, everything that's being done, even police or whatever, there's always bad players. There's and we need to find them. They need to be exposed, and they need to be excised from what they're doing. Because if we continue letting them do that, we become accomplices if we know what's going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And this is why, having that strong moral drive, which is why we work in food safety, is so important. And hopefully today we've been able to give some tools to people who can help. And part of this too is making sure that the people in your companies know about this. And part of this is understanding and making sure they understand the process. And to your point, that they're not disgruntled, it's not a disgruntled employee. It's like, oh yeah, they fired me, I'm going to fix their wagon, right? We get those, and we need to be able to root through those as well. And worse is, sabotage, employees who actually sabotage product. Part of that then becomes too, as an employee in the plant, if you're hearing stuff over the lunch table, where the table over, a guy is saying some stuff, you need to let management know on those things as well.
For sure, because their sabotage could not only hurt a consumer, but now it's going to hurt that company. And if the sole motivation is, I'm mad I didn't get a raise, or I'm mad I didn't get my PTO, that's a totally different scenario. And it really does a disservice to those that are trying to report real issues, because then it's easy for companies to say, oh, it's just that employee's just mad because of XYZ.
Yep, absolutely. Well, wow, this has been very interesting. Well, let's kind of bring this back up to the 30,000 foot level. Is any information, takeaways, Cori, you'd like to share with the audience today?
I guess, the main thing is, if you see something, say something. And I understand that in many cases you would feel like, I'm going to lose my job. And if that's kind of the attitude that you have, I would encourage you to use the anonymous reporting system. If something's going on and it's egregious, and you really feel like, I can't sleep at night, people are being injured, get yourself an attorney, start collecting evidence, and file a real complaint, but be prepared to be retaliated against. And I'd say if anybody has something that's going on and they're really uncomfortable and they want, a little more expert advice, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to give you more guidance documents and point you in the right direction, even recommend attorneys, because I don't want to see anybody get hurt, and I also don't want to see anybody lose their job over this. No one should lose their job over this, but if enough people speak up, maybe we can drive some change.
Exactly. And I, putting, this back more on a positive spin as well too, is we're talking about a very, very small, minority of companies. 99.99% of the companies out there are doing the right thing. And it's important that we find the bad players and get them out of the business. And it's just like criminals. We need to find the criminals and get rid of them and remove them from society, and so that they can't continue damaging. It's the same thing here. So Austin has a question here as we're closing out. So if you report anonymously, do you still need to get an attorney? Good question.
I would say that depends on the situation. If you're just going through GHI and you don't have any reason to believe that you'll be named as that person, you don't need an attorney. If you're reporting through OSHA anonymously, it'll be very difficult to have any follow-up, and you might not get the results that you want. So in that case, I would strongly encourage you to get an attorney. And there are attorneys that will work on contingency. If they believe that you have a case and that they can win, they'll work on, a 30% or more contingency fee. You get $100,000 and they take 30% of that. And if you can't pay a retainer, that's a pretty good deal. Yeah,
absolutely. And so I'm posting in here as well the link to the locals group. Again, this is a free group, and I'm sure we're going to be talking about this here today. I'm going to post some of these resources in there as well. Wow, great topic. I don't think I've heard anybody else talking about this. So Cori, I want to thank you for, the work that you do in this. As you said earlier, you're volunteering your time to help out with this. And that just demonstrates, in food safety, you know, how we care, and we want to help the consumers, and we want to make sure that people's grandchildren are safe. Even we never may even meet those children, but that doesn't matter. That's why we're here. So thank you very much for everything that you do.
Thank you.
Great. Well, everybody, thank you very much. So there's a comment from Nina that keeps catching my eyes. You know, we're talking about how cold it is here in North America. And so she's in Botswana, where it's 38 degrees Celsius, which in Fahrenheit is 100 degrees. So nice and toasty in Botswana. So stay cool, Nina. Everybody else stay warm. And I want to thank everybody for joining us today for this food safety chat. Not the easiest topic to talk about, but it's something that we need to talk about and we need to be aware of. And we need to make sure that people understand this, because if I'm working in a company, I'm comfortable with this. If I know that I'm doing the right thing and my company is doing the right thing, I can sleep at night. And don't let these things eat away. Make sure that your employees understand this as well. Good players have nothing to hide, and make sure that stays the way it is. So thanks again to Cori. Thank you all for joining us. I know that an hour investment of time is a lot during the course of your work week, and we appreciate you joining us to help grow your skills and share your information and ask your questions. You guys make this chat what it is. So thank you very much for joining us. And we'll be back here next Friday at 8 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Eastern for the next food safety chat. And thanks again, everybody. Have a great weekend. Thank you, Cori. Greatly appreciated. Enjoy your weekend as well.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks, everyone.